desk. I started in general technical support for Windows client machines for consumers years ago, like well over a decade ago. I noticed a lot of the support tickets were security related. Malware, for instance. Malware, even for consumers in the Windows space, is huge. And that started my interest in security. And eventually I got an opportunity to start writing articles on cybersecurity for the InfoSec Institute's resources blog. And I did that for a number of years. And I learned more and more about cybersecurity as I went along. I even wrote some of the curriculum for the InfoSec Institute. They're based in Chicago in the United States.
Okay.
I wrote some of their study material for their CISSP and CH programs, training programs, for people to prepare themselves for those certifications. And eventually I got opportunities to write for a number of different publications like CSO. The past while, I've been writing a lot for Tripwire's State of Security blog, and I've also been writing a lot for Alien Vault's blog, and they're both SIEM services vendors. So it's been going great. I mean, I'm always learning, just like you are. I'm learning every day. I'm never going to stop learning. So I can be ignorant about a lot of things too.
Excellent. It's good. And in terms of so at the moment, what you are doing is that you are dedicating your time mainly to educating the public, or you working indeed still very much hands-on, or what's your current your current journey at the moment?
Honestly, I don't do a lot of hands-on stuff. I'm in a position where I consider myself to be in the category of those who can't teach. I do a lot of research. I do a lot of. So whenever either an editor comes to me and they want me to write an article about a recent cyber attack or some sort of phenomenon, I just do the research and I learn whatever I can, and I try to convey that information to my readers. But just like you, I'm always learning.
Cool. It's cool. Question on a topic, which is, I've got different topics that I would like you to, I would say, discuss. If you can, if you cannot, whatever your level is on that. On the issue of what they call social engineering attacks, which is becoming more and more, something that magazine and blogs are talking about. I mean, can you give me a kind of definition of that? It's more on the part of general awareness that is
interest for me. I mean, the heart of what social engineering is all about has been around for hundreds of years before the internet ever existed. It's fooling people to get something out of them, whether it's money or information or access. And so when we talk about social engineering in the information security world, it's just the evolution of scam people using computer technology to scam people.
Okay, so just the technology medium is changing, but there is nothing new under the sun, you would say?
The human principle is the same. The ways people might use technology to fool people, to scam them, that will obviously change if the technology changes, yeah.
Okay.
But the principle is the same, right? Like, a lot of the social engineering stuff that I see firsthand, just as a consumer using computer products, is very often I see social engineering scams on web pages now, on otherwise innocent web pages, but there are social engineering banner ads that try to either pretend to be a Windows pop-up or pretend to be a legitimate download link to an application or a BitTorrent download link that a user might be looking for, and trying to deceive them to, instead of clicking where they're supposed to be clicking, to be clicking where the social engineering banner ad is trying to get them to click, right? Same with Trojan malware. And a lot of very legitimate looking applications are Trojans, and it's a growing problem, especially in the app stores for mobile now, for iOS, for Android. It's a lot of work to weed out the Trojans.
Talking about application, does Apple or Google on the App Store are providing, enough safety for the user?
I think Apple and Google are doing as good of a job as they possibly can. Like, I understand that Android's system is a blacklisting system. So an app is automatically accepted until they discover that it's malicious, then it's taken down, right? Whereas with iOS for the App Store, I think it's a whitelisting system, right? It goes through their metrics as to whether or not it's an acceptable app. There is still a risk that some Trojans might slip, and there have been iOS Trojans over the years. They both have their different systems. There are pros and cons to both. I honestly do believe that Apple and Google are trying their best to cut down on the malware that's distributed through their platforms. It's a lot of hard work, though.
Talking about Google, the Initiate Forward, I think, project is a Zero project, where Google is trying to discover new zero-day across different vendors, not necessarily their own product. What's your thought about that?
I've been following zero-day attacks a little bit. I've been doing a lot of research lately on SIEM vendors, and for instance, the sort of anti-malware software and systems that they use. And it seems, based on the research that I've done, that zero-day attacks, like on an enterprise data center, for instance, are way more common and frequent now than they were even 10 years ago. It seems like 10, more like 20 years ago, signatures for preventing malware were very good and very reliable. And now you can't rely on signatures anymore. You have to look at heuristics. You have to look at behavioral network analysis, or you have to look at machine learning techniques. And it just makes the whole anti-malware space very complicated as well.
Just to get, if you guys can get back a bit on, just for me to understand that aspect of thing, are you saying that it's becoming more and more complex and difficult to have good detection systems?
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Okay. I mean that can be counterintuitive for me. I tend to think, for example, the more the technology is evolving, the more the system is becoming complex and more interaction, but the more the how do you say that, the versus, the more the technology to protect all the system is evolving naturally. Is not that straightforward, or?
I don't think it's straightforward, no, especially since different SIEM vendors and different antivirus vendors don't all agree as to what the best techniques or methodologies are. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty in that field, definitely.
So when people are talking about, I'm sorry, okay. So when people are talking about, there is this kind of big kind of fear factor, fear project about, IoT challenges on, all those kind of, new devices. I mean, is that kind of concrete and real? I mean, those challenges are already here for us, for the cybersecurity community.
I think, yeah. I mean, IoT is going to continue to be a much bigger problem as the years go by. I know already we have a number of IoT products. Like what a consumer might have these days is an internet-based home security system or an internet-connected home thermostat. So those already are the kind of IoT products that we're seeing a lot more of lately. And when I've spoken to other cybersecurity professionals, they tell me that their biggest concern about that is that countries like in the EU, in the United States, in Canada, around the world, countries don't have the right sort of regulatory framework to set security standards for when new types of products are internet connected. So, I mean, it'll always be a problem. There'll be a much bigger problem until there's specific legislation to regulate standards for that sort of thing. Definitely.
Do you think the industry is taking the right path right now for that? So just kind of finding some alternative and good way to secure their product at the beginning? Or
it would be really great if the manufacturers of home routers would put something on their firmware so as soon as the router is connected to a computer with an operating system like Windows or Linux or Mac OS X, if there could be a GUI popping up reminding the user to change their default settings and to come up with a secure router password and Wi-Fi password. If they could, I know it's possible with the firmware now through the drivers for those devices to do something like that. It would be imperative, really, because sometimes consumers might not look at the little paper manual that comes with their router or comes with their DSL box. So you need something kind of in user's face, I think.
Yeah.
Change your password.
Change your password. Big
do it now.
Yeah. I think it's coming from a bit of user awareness as well. And you were talking about, social engineering and all this good stuff. Do you think today is based on the numerous attack we get, people get visibility now on social media, or media in general? Do you think they are a bit more aware about what is the cybersecurity and what best practice to protect yourself? Or
I hope lay people are better informed. Your average layperson now has a mobile device, like they have an iPhone or they have an Android phone, and they have a PC that they use either at home or at work. I would hope that these days they might be a little more aware about malware and about social engineering. Whether they are, that's a different question. I don't know. I mean, also, like a lot of the stuff that Hollywood does about, with Hollywood movies about hackers and that sort of thing, sometimes it misleads people as to the nature of most attackers. If they watch Hollywood movies like Hackers, or if they watch American TV shows like Law and Order and whatnot, they might think that a hacker is a 17-year-old boy wearing a hoodie, and he's at his computer, and he's typing at 300 words per minute, and his attack will be successful if he can out-type the other people, right? So, but then I also hear that there are also American shows like Mr. Robot that actually portray cyber attack really realistically. So, but who is educating end users, right?
Yeah, the cinema or people like you, but I mean, but you know what? You're perfectly right. Even, to be honest, even I'm going to say even, but I'm coming from the recruitment industry for the last 10 years. That's been my bread and butter. Okay, and the idea of and you're right. I mean, we got that kind of those kind of fantasy about what is a hacker, what are the kind of problem that we might encounter, and most of the time is the fantasy is really far away from our day-to-day life. Change on a regular basis your password. Do you have some simple application that makes sure that the password are changed perhaps automatically if you are lazy like me? If you are not organized, what does that imply? Simple safeguard with the setting in Facebook. I mean, I'm mixing a lot of things because there is as well this issue of cybersecurity being that kind of big stuff, which is not really clearly defined, because it's easy to put everything in that big bag of, that's cybersecurity. But And that's, and that was one of the triggers for me to do those podcasts, to meet, professional like you, as well as the cultural aspect is very important. I mean, we've been interviewing some French dudes, some UK, Australia. We're gonna interview in a few weeks now people from West Africa. Africa is most of the time not on the map on those kind of thing. Weirdly, because they are the first one who are developing a banking application. In Kenya, in Senegal as well, where I'm from. There is as well the aspect of women in cybersecurity, to be honest, which is actually I would like to have a little point with you on that one. So it's all about making sure that you are breaking those this kind of bridge between the reality, which is simple and routine and sometimes boring, but important, and this fantasy world about, well, yeah, we're in Mr. Robot world, and this guy
I've heard a lot of people who work in the court system in law, or they work as police, or they work in hospitals, and they find that ordinary lay people think they know how they should be doing their jobs based on movies and TV shows that get how to do their jobs completely wrong.
That's a good analogy. That's a really good analogy, actually. Yeah, ER. We all remember ER. When we wanted to be what's the name of the guy? That was Clooney. What was the name of the anyway? But yeah, you got the point. Exactly. Yeah. So can I jump on a completely different subject in a way about women in cybersecurity? Indeed, yeah. I mean, I've been talking with two human resource people and one partner from a big four in Europe, and that one of their main concern just to be able to reflect in the workforce high level cybersecurity people from all walk of life, men, women, transgender, and then everything. So it's true. I mean, do you have the same kind of issue of misrepresentation in your ecosystem, i.e. Canada and US on your side?
I think people in Canada and the US I've met in my field have been at least 90% male. I have met a lot of women in cybersecurity since last fall because I've been doing an interview series for Tripwire's State of Security blog on women and information security, deliberately finding those people and interviewing them. And I have an all-new series of interviews that should be coming out on Tripwire's blog in April, starting in April.
Excellent.
I did the first series that was published last fall in October, November, and December, and people really like those articles, so I'm deciding to do it again and interview some more women. And I talk to them about cybersecurity issues, but I also talk to them about what is it like to be a woman in a male-dominated industry. And every person is a unique individual, and they have their own responses and their own firsthand experiences. But a general trend that I see is that when they were teenagers, they didn't think that they could have a career in computers. And something when they were adults, when they were in their 20s, in their 30s or whatever, led them to the cybersecurity field where they learned all of a sudden, I'm competent at this. I can understand computers. I can understand how to configure computers. I can understand how viruses work. I can understand social engineering. Some of the women in information security who I've interviewed had a sociology background or another social sciences sort of background, and they stumbled upon it. And it makes me wonder if more of us weren't convinced when we were younger, like when we were teenagers, to pursue computing, we just would have gotten started in our cybersecurity careers earlier. a lot of the men that I meet do regard me as their equal or as someone else in their field who knows what they're doing. Every so often, though, you do meet a man who just finds it difficult to think of a woman as a hacker. Right? I remember my fiance, his name is Rob.
Okay.
We have something in our Canadian town called the PC Museum.
Okay.
Fiance's friend, Sid Bolton, runs the PC Museum, and it has basically every model of personal computer you can think of from the mid-70s to now. And also every video game console ever produced, including stuff like the Magnavox Odyssey from 1972. And there are all kinds of events there in our town every month to get people to see all these legacy PCs and legacy video game consoles firsthand and to learn about them. And so I'm there frequently with my fiance because he's a volunteer there. He works there. And I remember we were at an event there last week to promote the new Nintendo Switch console. Mm-hmm. And we ran into a guy there who we didn't know. And we were there as a couple, me and Rob, we were holding hands. And the guy asked Rob if he was new there when he had been volunteering there for well over a decade. And he totally ignored me.
Okay, so, yeah, you were not in the picture at all. Yeah, you were like, yeah.
He saw my fiance as someone who might be interested in computers, and I'm his girlfriend.
Yeah.
So, I do meet a lot of men who do take it seriously, but every so often you'll meet one who doesn't.
Yeah. And do you think it's an issue on the school itself because they are not, involving enough effort to touch, the woman population about computer and potentially how they can grow a successful career in computer? Or?
I have no idea what the Canadian public school system is like now because I haven't been in it since the 1990s, and I have the feeling from meeting children every so often that it's changed a lot. Since I was in school.
Positively then, yeah. Okay.
But I remember my 1990s public school experience. I remember at one point we've had computer labs, and it wasn't demonstrated as something gendered or anything like that. But there wasn't, other than once a week to spend half an hour in the computer lab to use the desktop publishing software to make greeting cards and printouts. My public school exposure didn't have much computing related stuff other than that. I would hope now that there's a lot more computing in the core curriculum. I have no idea, quite frankly. I hope that they show men who have made great progress in the computer sciences, but also women, like Ada Lovelace was the very first computer programmer. And people forget things like how most computer programmers in the United States up to the 1950s were women. Women, carefully arranging their little punch cards to read by mainframe computers. And it wasn't until the 60s that most computer programmers, at least in the United States, were male. So those are interesting historical details that maybe the public school system in Canada and in France and around the world should introduce to students, that computing isn't a gendered thing. If you're a boy or a girl, if you're interested, it's something that you can explore.
Yeah, I think you participate.
Good on you for that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. William, you participate to you was in contact with a woman who's kind of creating an event, Women in Cybersecurity or something like that. No?
Women in Cybersecurity in France, yeah, and I'm trying to introduce this idea in West Africa as well, in Senegal. It's broader. It's women in IT, but yeah, because I think that it sounds stupid to say that, but it's important that everyone in the community, regardless of your of your gender is, is impact, is included, is educated into that, everyone at his level. You don't have to be a coder, but people got to get involved, and women are half of humanity. So yeah, I find it very interesting. And to be honest, that you gave me that's something that we should cover. Women are as pioneer in those science. That's been the case. So we got to study that and to bring awareness one again and again.
Do you know any woman around you who's kind of involved in this kind of event in Canada, for example, like women?
Yeah, well,
yeah.
I have a friend who is in my field. Her name is Cheryl Biswas, and I know she's involved in something in the United States called TierraCon, where they talk about the issues of attracting women in STEM and what it's like to be a woman in STEM, I guess. I don't know much more about it than that. I could definitely... one of my interviews in my new series is with Cheryl, and she mentions TierraCon.
Okay.
I think if you're curious about it, you should Google it. TIARACON.
Yeah,
I honestly know much more about it than what Cheryl's told
me. We will put on the credential of the episode anyway, so it will be good.
Excellent.
Yeah, definitely.
Subject. One thing I'm really interested to know about it, because I have no visibility on that, is on Canada. What do you think about cybersecurity landscape in Canada? Do you think you get good maturity out there? Or do you think people are involved, on a lot of good stuff, get good community, good hacking community, this kind of stuff?
Well, there are some really good schools for computer science in general in Canada. I'm thinking of the University of Waterloo. I know the University of Toronto has a good computer science program, even though if it's not as prestigious as the one at the University of Waterloo. I think the future of Canadian cybersecurity legislation right now is looking better than the United States. Because now that, and I don't support any of the candidates who were likely to become president of the United States last year. But now that Donald Trump is president, he assigned Rudy Giuliani, is a man who was the mayor of New York City when 9/11 happened.
Yep.
And he assigned Rudy Giuliani to be head of cybersecurity legislation for the United States. And based on things that Rudy Giuliani has said in the media, it doesn't sound like he knows how to turn a computer on.
Okay.
So
that's so bad.
There are all kinds of brilliant computer scientists in the United States, but the top guy for American government legislation shouldn't be there, right? And he's an idiot, right? So I'm really concerned. I don't necessarily like everything that Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is doing, but I feel more confidence that at least he would appoint people who know what they're doing when it comes to Canadian cybersecurity legislation. And I had the same sorts of feelings about the EU and about France. So I think now it's not looking so good for the United States, and we're going to be a little better off.
Yeah, probably. I think you're going to take all the good talent as well. Everybody wants to leave the state now to go to Canada. So it's going to be good for you.
Yeah, a lot of Americans have been researching how to move to Canada. I'm really concerned about them. I feel for them. It's not good.
Maybe it would be the promised land for us, Canada. So that's good.
I mean, where most of Canada's population lives, we can drive to the United States, to America, in less than 2 hours.
Okay.
Even though Canada is a huge country, we all pretty much live right where the United States is. So where I live even, we could drive to the United States in 2 hours. But it's not looking very good for the U.S. border crossings, because they're turning a lot of people away that they didn't turn away before Donald Trump became president. So even though that American border, I can get to there very quickly, there isn't the confidence now that we can cross the border as tourists with the same kind of confidence as we had 2 years ago.
Okay, what you're saying in a nutshell is that all these kind of political change are really affecting the way the ecosystem is working, even in your own field of work.
A lot of the companies that I deal with, like the applications I write for, are based in the United States.
Yeah, okay.
I'm really concerned about what they have to deal with now. Like, for instance, the recent legislation that American Congress passed saying that ISPs have to share all the data that they have on customers with the government without a criminal search warrant. That's really concerning. I hear about stuff like the Internet Archive, which is run mainly by a group of Americans. And you know all about the Internet Archive and the web caching work that they do?
No, not at all. Yeah.
.org. They try to do as comprehensive of a web cache of as many websites as they possibly can using bots. And they still do a lot of their work outside the United States, but now they're considering moving more of their operations to Canada because they're concerned about how American government policy might affect their work. So I know that the Internet Archive has an office in Toronto, and I think they might be moving more of their data storage and data center stuff in Toronto, just in case something from American government might.
Can close the door.
Yeah, they don't want to be affected by adverse legislation on that matter.
Exactly.
I appreciate that.
Cool. I think the American government is going on for a long time on the wrong way. So including on the last WikiLeaks we get, so it's just a kind of this kind of huge octopus getting access to all the data they can just to and sniffing traffic from their own population. It's just crazy.
It's going to be a huge problem for American intelligence because they'll have data overload. Like, they already have data overload. They have all this data on millions and millions and millions of citizens, so they can't be intelligent with how they use that data. They can't effectively zero in on individuals based on network traffic because they're looking at everything. They should only be looking at the kind of stuff that they have search warrants for. So even if your only interest is effective law enforcement, it too is a problem, right? It's not even effective law enforcement anymore.
I think they give a try in France and just get pushed back to the door really quickly. So we get this revolution power in us to push them back every time we are trying. But yeah, unfortunately for the American people, they don't have this let's say revolution blood in their inside of there. So yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I think at some point it's going to be to create a lot of tension because, for example, any of European user using an American product, starting to think, oh, I'm going to use an American product. Probably somebody's going to, ice dropping all my communication with my friend. So yeah, it can be, it can create a lot of conflict between country as well. So, and at some point it's going to be really we're going to struggle with that, I think. So because government is going to start, potentially, because cybersecurity is the next new landscape for the war as well. So people need to be careful. Government need to be careful what they are doing with data, and they can create conflict now.
The American military might want to invest more money on cyber warfare than buying a whole bunch of new tanks and aircraft that their experts say they don't even need. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to be a big problem. And I guess because the military defense contractors don't really make products for fighting cyber warfare, that's not where the focus is.
Yeah. But they can make a lot of damage now. But Mr. Robot again is a good good situation. So I'm doing a spoiler alert here for people who didn't see the series, but one of the last scene is just Elliot is on is kind of planning a hack, and he's kind of changing normal behaviors on the UPS within the is not his data warehouse for material paper, and just by doing that he want to blow and blast the whole facilities. So, and when you think about that, this guy actually, when you read the script and some information you get from the media, apparently it's based on actual operation who happened on Syria. I was for Stuxnet because the government have been trying to do that. So you think you are kind of living, on a totally different world where just people, behind his computer can just blast a facility easily like that. So it's kind of really freaking out when you think about it.
SCADA. It's all about SCADAs. It's all about penetrating SCADA
issue,
right?
Yeah. Last little question, if you don't mind. Your kind of recommendation in terms of, books, article, things that you've read the last month, the last quarter that you would recommend to our listeners and to myself.
It's an old book, and it doesn't have much information on the latest technologies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily directly about cybersecurity, but I think anyone in our field who hasn't read Stephen Levy's Hackers should read it, because there is no single book that has taught me more about hacker culture, how it started evolving before I was even born. It starts with the book Stephen Levy's Hackers. It starts with the hacker culture in the 1950s at MIT in the United States, about people playing around with PDP mainframes. And then it goes into stuff like the computer club that Apple developed out of in the 70s. Homebrew Computing Club, yeah. So to get some understanding of the history of hackers and hacker culture, that is a really good book. I recommend anyone to read it.
Love that. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate the talk. Really, that was really nice.
Thank you. It was great to talk to you guys.